Thank you, Thurza. I suppose it's all a matter of perspective, isn't it? Because it's a question of whether you looked too short or whether I look too tall. I think we probably have our own insecurities about that. I was struck also by your point about how simple this whole process seems with that slide. And I suppose what I'm going to try and do is unpick that and not make it overly complicated, but highlight, I suppose, how much we've achieved so far and how much we still have to achieve. So we can't take the pressure off. The slide there really outlines, I think, 6 of the key areas, really, the structure that's been put around this programme to tackle what we thought the key barriers were to achieving the original vision. I'm not going to go through all 6 of them, you'll be glad to hear, but I am going to sort of pick up on population and outcomes. One, because I think it fundamentally underpins everything else, and 2, because it kind of highlights exactly what we're trying to achieve through each of the 5. I mean, fundamentally, I think, as Thurs has already talked about, this is about modelling the right behaviours, and it was quite striking at the programme board last week at how people felt that they had, even the people involved in the room, whether it was lay partners, social care, health, everyone had been empowered, and the process had been one of equality, so everyone having an equal voice, and actually that being achieved, I think, because of the focus on people. This also gives boroughs and localities a head start, because one of the things is, and I'll talk about this in population and outcomes, is we do have the same arguments, and I know one of the frustrations of the people who've been to every one of the meetings is that we sometimes have those same arguments even 2 or 3 meetings down the line. But the idea is that we can have those discussions at this level so that we can give the boroughs a head start, because what is a challenging timescale for us all. And I think the real challenge for this is that in each of these areas we provide enough challenge and enough guidance to make it easier for us to integrate and to improve outcomes for people, but at the same time don't provide so much that it stifles the innovation which will make a difference in individual boroughs. So in terms of population and outcomes, what you can't really see there is that we've divided the groups. I think I should know this off the top of my head, but I think it's 9 groups, and the reason for that, I think, is that we felt that we are segmented. We have this discussion about, should we segment the population? Should we go to population groups? And the fact was, well, we do already, but we do it by organisational boundaries, not by people, perhaps more sensible organising logic that actually would help people to deliver better outcomes. The other challenge we often have, and I think this will go through, is, well, why are you focusing on groups? Doesn't that just put up different dividing lines? And I think the fundamental thing that we're trying to do with these groups is not to take away from the individual, because underpinning each of these groups, we have to look at a variety of different things that impact on the support that people need. You know, social isolation will make a fundamental difference to how we support somebody in any one of these groups, the level of social isolation. And we have to have individual care plans which are focused on their people's individual needs and supporting those people to be independent. But there has to be a way of trying, we can't just have 2 million individual groups across North West London. We need an organising logic to help us to structure our support. And I think the other thing is not to forget that this doesn't solve some of the problems. So the issues about dual diagnosis and is somebody in one group or the other group, that will still exist. What we have to do is we still have to solve that problem locally, I think. The population and outcomes workstream not only tried to get us focused on individuals, but it also tried to get us focused on outcomes, and that was both system outcomes, which we're probably quite used to, maybe outcomes that relate to particular groups, although we haven't focused on that so much, but I think crucially important, then the outcomes for individuals and how we embed a focus on outcomes and recovery and independence into our care planning process. And finally, it's looked at different models of care. And one of those arguments that we've had numerous times is about, is this driven, how much of these models of care that you're putting into this programme are driven by evidence? And again, this mirrors this argument I was talking about, like guidance from a North West London perspective, but also a local innovation is, evidence won't give us every answer. If it did, we'd probably have it by now. What this needs to do is it provides enough evidence to say, here's some things you don't need to do again, but actually 50% of this at least is going to be about local innovation and to meet the needs of your individual populations. So this slide really just reinforces, I think, a couple of things that I've said already, but the importance of co-production, the importance of our lay partners, but also the importance of a different perspective. And that point I talked about in terms of equality, everybody around the table comes with a different perspective and actually adds a different lens, a different way of looking at it, which is invaluable, I think, in terms of improving what we do. This is more an advert for what's coming, in that the toolkit that's being developed across those 6 work streams will be being finalised in the sense of a first draft in the next 2 weeks. It then becomes a living document on a website, which we hope will then, it will evolve over time, picking up what Nigel was saying about there is no straight solution, and it will evolve over time, and those tools will improve through the input of everyone in this room and hundreds more like us, I guess. So this just reinforces that timescale, and I think the only thing I was struck with when you look at that is it feels very relaxing, doesn't it? You know, you've got plenty of time to do this. Which also struck me when you look at the BCF guidance, which talks about we'll all be fully integrated by 2018, which is a big sigh of relief. But what I don't think it shows is the kind of real challenge in that second area, where we know we're all trying to develop our Better Care Fund plans, where we're already in the early adopter discussion across North West London, and how we pull all that together in a meaningful way to start delivering some change early in 2014-15. So here I kind of come back to where I started, really. Those 6 areas are replicated here, and I think we've gone away and we've been busy in Brent, and we've had our Integration Transformation Board, which in terms of process we've tried to mirror North West London by having an inclusive approach, all of the providers, as many providers as we can, Health Watch are involved, the voluntary sector at the table, to try and generate the right solution for Brent. But we are then, you kind of get head down and you're trying to do it very focused on the current structure of services, the needs of the population in Brent. And I think this slide I found really helpful myself actually when I was preparing for this, because you get a heads up, and I think this is the strength of the programme. Again, it provides that input at the start, the guidance, the challenge, but also when you get to the end and you're starting to develop your local approaches, we have all these sort of processes to say, well, actually, did we really embed partnerships? Have we really gone as far as we could with pooling our health and social care budgets? Have we really looked at shadow capitated budgets? Have we really organised cares around modelled groups of people, or are we just tweaking the services that were in place 6 months ago? And then, on all the other questions that sit there in terms of provider networks. So I think that we have to have that constant dialogue between the North West London structure, the challenge and the guidance, and the local structure as well. And of course, we have as a pioneer committed to these 3 things. And I think the challenge for the people running the organisation of the Pioneer is how we continue to provide that support at a local level now as we move from that North West London approach. And I know, listening to Stephen the other day at the programme board, Stephen Moran, who programme director, saying when he looked at this 3 months ago, it looked terrifying enough. I guess from my perspective, the next 3 months look pretty terrifying. And the support that we get to keep the drive and to not lose what we've got that's very good at North West London level, at a local level, is really important. The formative evaluation will be talked about in a bit more detail in a moment. And of course, the role we have, which I think picks up on Thurs's earlier point, which is not to just bury our heads in either our borough or in North West London to deliver what we can, but also to lead nationally and to inform people about how to do it and how to the process of doing it rather than the solution, I guess. So on that note, I think, unless I'm mistaken, it's just a big thank you.
Thank you very much.